So we are about 2 weeks away until Smash comes out, and a bunch of new footage and information has been trickling out here. We got a bunch of footage of like World of Light and Classic mode, and all sorts of stuff has come out of that. So I'm going to talk about that today, as well as where we're at with like speculation and stuff. Now, this is going to be sort of a leakly update. I've used that term before, but said in the past that I couldn't really be doing it weekly because, I don't know, stuff comes out so often that I want to be on top of it as soon as it happened. Now that we're in like DLC speculation and the game's going to be out pretty soon, I'll probably slow down a bit after the game comes out, and maybe I will do these as a weekly thing. In fact, I'm thinking about scheduling out my whole way that I'm like posting videos and stuff, and I'll probably have that within the next week or so. I'll maybe do a video that says like what my schedule for releasing stuff will be. Maybe there'll be a day where I release PapaGenos episodes. Maybe there'll be a day where I do like a leak video. Maybe a day where I'm over on my Discord for a few hours if people want to talk to me, and that'll be all scheduled out. Like I said, there's a ton of new footage out there, so if you're interested in watching people play Super Smash Bros. Ultimate before the game comes out, just search for it, man. There's a bunch of people who seem to have the game, and they're playing it, reviewers and stuff like that, and so there's tons of new footage everywhere. Lots of characters have been shown to be spirits. Now, I'm not sure if spirits deconfirm characters or not. There's, the argument that perhaps because maybe the DLC was made at the same time as the game, or the character is chosen at the same time, it's unlikely they'd choose a character as a DLC character and also give them a spirit, but we really don't know that for sure, so it's kind of a soft rule, not a hard rule. I do think it probably hurts a character's chances to be a spirit, but doesn't necessarily deconfirm them. Anyway, some major characters we've seen Rayman now, we have seen Bandana Waddle Dee, one of the characters I thought survived being a spirit, but nope, he's a spirit too. We've also seen Paper Mario now. We've seen Elma from Xenoblade. So yeah, a lot of the main characters that people were like, well, if they're not a spirit, maybe they're going to be DLC, have now been shown to be spirits. Very, very few characters are not spirits. Now, I will stress this again, that Geno has only been seen as a token for battle mode. So yeah, not totally a spirit, but it could happen. I'm just waiting for, some footage of him being a spirit, basically. But we haven't seen that yet. Some other interesting stuff we've seen is that we've seen a few new bosses, like Giga Bowser, have been shown. So it appears that different characters have like different things that they fight in classic mode, that there's going to be a bunch of different boss characters that we've now seen, so that seems pretty cool. The Palutena guidances are also back. A lot of them are the same, but the new characters have ones, and some of the characters that have been like changed a little bit, such as like Link is now Breath of the Wild Link, have a new Palutena's guidance, so I always thought those were really cool, so happy to see those return. So I could probably spend this whole video just going over what I've seen in like the new footage that is out there, but I think it's probably better if you guys just go out, watch the footage for yourself, see what you can see. As far as other things that are happening in Smash right now, there's this really interesting amiibo bundle that's been shown to being released in Japan. It's like 63 amiibos going all the way, I think, until Piranha Plant, that are going to be released in one giant box set. So if you're not caught up on amiibos, I guess that's an option, though I hear that's going to be extremely limited. Like, they're only going to make like 50 of them, and it's on, I think, Amazon Japan, I think, is where it's being released. So like, I don't know, man, if you get lucky and get that, cool. I'm sitting here happy that I have doubles of all the Smash amiibos in box. I'm crazy like that. I love amiibos. So yeah, I mean, if you're not caught up, that's an option. I suppose you could also just buy them all as they're being re-released anyway, but that's a really, really cool limited edition thing, but I just feel like 50 of them, it's probably way too limited for anyone to actually get their hands on it. In other just Nintendo news, Reggie came out and said that an N64 Classic, something that a ton of people have been speculating about, and myself I thought was probably going to happen eventually, he said it's not in our planning future. So I'm taking that as that it could still happen, honestly. I do think you have to keep in mind that Nintendo often has these like PR responses to things. So for instance, Bill Trinan back during E3 said that there was like no plans for Smash DLC, or he alluded to it and said like, well, the game's Ultimate, you might be okay with the roster right at the end. Obviously DLC plans have been in the works the whole time. So yeah, I mean, sometimes they just answer that way. I feel like Reggie's maybe saying this because 2 holiday seasons ago we got the NES Classic, last year we got the Super NES Classic, and he may just be saying, it's not in our planning future, just kind of deconfirming that this holiday season there's not going to be an N64 Classic, but there might be one in the future. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. It's also possible they do something like they put N64 games on the Switch somehow, maybe a cartridge that has like 30 N64 games, or they do some sort of like thing with like a virtual console type situation where you have N64 games on the Switch. That could be another alternative option for them to do with N64 games. But as of right now, I'm taking this to mean that the N64 Classic is not happening this year, this holiday season. Seems like something Reggie would want to brush aside so people aren't getting like excited for that being a immediate thing Nintendo's going to do. So now for the speculation side of things, we're going to start off reading a tweet by Stealth. If you don't know who Stealth is, he's a fairly reputable leaker, so it's important that we look at what he's saying. So over on Twitter, Stealth said, "When I heard that Simon was in talks to be in Smash, I did also hear that Cloud was literally the last character to be added back to Smash Ultimate because of the difficulty of negotiations, which makes sense considering the lack of Square content." So now this is pretty interesting. There's a severe lack of Square representation in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. For instance, Final Fantasy still only has the 2 tracks that it had as DLC in Smash Bros. 4. There's also apparently no spirits that we've seen. The closest thing we've seen is the Geno token, and obviously Geno was a Mii costume for DLC, so that was something Nintendo already had the rights to. The only other thing that Nintendo really got the rights to besides Cloud, his stage, the music, and the Geno Mii costume, and now a Geno token that we've seen is the Chocobo hats, that costume. So it really looks like Nintendo didn't get very much from Square. Now this is extremely interesting. If we're to believe that we are going to get a Square rep as DLC, it is possible that Nintendo didn't get anything else from Square, that negotiations with Square are much harder than people are thinking. I know a lot of people have said like maybe it's a Dragon Quest rep. I've said the same thing. Maybe it's Sora, but you know, oh man, I don't know if working with Disney would be too hard or not, but a lot of people are saying like, oh no, Disney's open to it and stuff. But if Cloud was the last holdout character that they had difficulty getting into the game at all, and we're seeing a severe lack of Square representation, it is possible that the DLC character pretty much has to be Geno. Geno is a character that we know Nintendo has the rights to use from Square. They've had the rights since they got the Mii costume. The only other character we know for sure that they have the rights to use is Chocobo for those hats. I guess Chocobo is a possibility, as, you know, we're getting Piranha Plant as a DLC fighter, but I think Nintendo would probably know how important Geno is to the fan base, you know, based on the Smash ballot and stuff like that. I kind of thought Geno's chances were pretty low. If he was a token, I thought he'd maybe be a spirit. If he was, you know, if Nintendo was choosing the characters, I thought he might not be a character they would choose. But if we are indeed getting a Square rep, and Nintendo is choosing the characters, it's possible they chose the one that they simply have the rights to use, which would be Geno. I think this boosts his chances significantly, and I know I have a lot of Geno bias, but honestly, if Cloud was difficult to get in the game, if we have almost no Square stuff in the game at all, I think Geno has a really good shot. I'm waiting to see if he gets a Spirit or not. Again, I don't think Spirits deconfirm characters, but I do think they kind of hurt a character's chances. Obviously, we won't know for sure until we get the full DLC to know if a Spirit deconfirms a character or not. It's possible we get like 1 character out of the DLC that's a Spirit, or, you know, 2 or 3, you know, who knows? It'll be easier to tell after we get at least 1 character announced, but at this point, since I haven't seen Geno as a Spirit, if we get the game, you know, revealed and we get no Spirit of Geno and just a token, I think that does something amazing for his chances. I'd say he probably is extremely likely at that point. Now, there's also a rumor, of course, that we're going to get the Square rep first. That's going to be the first DLC announced, and there's a little bit of a rumor by quite a few different people saying that the Video Game Awards may also be where they announce their first DLC character. So I am kind of looking forward to that. Now, it might not be Geno, of course. There's a lot of good things going for other characters, but this new information about Cloud being the last representation, or the last character to get into Smash, and the fact that Geno is maybe not a Spirit, but just a token, could bode really, really well for his chances. Now, Vergeben, who's been really great with leaking Super Smash Bros. Ultimate stuff, is the origin of where we're hearing that we're going to be getting a Square rep, and he was always not sure if that was DLC or not. He said he's heard 7 different names, so that's pretty interesting. Now, Hitagi, who has Vergeben's backing as a credible leaker, has specifically mentioned Chrono and Dragon Quest as characters they have heard, and they've also said that they've heard the 7 that Vergeben has heard. So it's possible, you know, it's not Geno, but I do feel like within those 7, Geno is probably one of the possible names. Now, Geno possibly being a name in those 7 Square characters is just my opinion. I don't know that for sure, of course, and I want to be really clear about this being, my opinion about something. Most of these videos are me giving my opinion about leaks and things I've heard, and I'll go over that a little bit more in a second here. Now, going further with Hitagi, I don't want to go over everything that they said, but one really important thing they said was that Catalina from Granblue, who they've been saying was really, really likely and that negotiations for Smash have probably happened, they're now saying probably isn't in Smash, and that those negotiations were probably for a different game. The only character Hitagi has said that they are totally sure about is Steve. So there's also these interesting Minecraft tweets that Nintendo has been kind of pushing, and some of them seem to talk about Smash and stuff. So yeah, it does seem like Minecraft is really likely to get into Smash in some way. Vergebin always said Minecraft content way back when. So yeah, it does seem like we're going to get something with Minecraft. Now, I can't really talk about Hitagi without going over exactly what they said about me personally. They've said some stuff about some other YouTubers, and they've said stuff about YouTubers in general, and I just want to go over that, and I don't want to create some sort of like back and forth here, but I do feel like I should address it. So before Hitagi closed their Reddit thread that just had, kind of them answering a bunch of leak questions, they posted this that directly responds to me. So I'm just going to read the couple paragraphs down here. So he says, also, I haven't backtracked on Steve. This is what I mean by PapaGenos checking his sources. I wasn't just for his Banjo leak, it was for all of his videos. He's gotten stuff about me and Vergebin wrong multiple times, and he just needs to check sources or correct his mistakes when making videos. PapaGenos, you aren't a bad YouTuber, although your videos tend to drag a bit too long. That I totally agree with. I do talk way too much. But you need to correct your mistakes because we get shit from people because of you. So first off, I completely apologize if I've spread any kind of misinformation. Like I said a little bit earlier, these are opinion pieces. This is my opinion on leaks and stuff like that. While I do often cite my sources, and I will always put up, like, if I'm reading a quote, I'll put the quote up on the screen. People may be taking my words as your words, and I obviously don't want people to do that. Anything beyond a quote shouldn't be taken as somebody else's words. It should be taken as my opinion. So I'm sorry if my fans do that to some extent or something like that, but that was never my intentions, obviously. If I ever get anything wrong, feel free to message me and I will correct what you're trying to say. If I misinterpret something, my bad. Now, that said, I don't know exactly what I've gotten wrong here. Most of the time, like I said, I just read a quote. So, if my interpretation of that quote is wrong, then I'm sorry. The one thing you address specifically is the thing about Steve, and that I do have the quote that I was thinking you backtracked on Steve about, so I'll read that now. So this was the first quote where you were really, really sure about Steve. Someone asked, out of curiosity, do you know if the Minecraft character in Smash is actually a playable fighter? And do you know of any other fighters? And Hitagi responded, it's Steve. I double-checked, he's playable, and there will be a Minecraft stage as well as other stuff in the game. Now, a little while after that, someone asked, you still behind Steve in Smash Bros, though? Don't let us down. And Hitagi responded, let's put it this way. Even if Steve isn't in Smash, Minecraft makes it into Smash regardless. Now, that was obviously like a hypothetical situation that you were putting out there. If Steve doesn't make it, then Minecraft will definitely. So I took that as a bit of backtracking on the certainty of Steve. Yes, it was a hypothetical, but I think it left room up for doubt. And that wasn't just coming from me. I remember when this was posted, I remember people over on Smashboards and other forums going, oh my god, Hitagi went back on Steve, it's not certain anymore. So yeah, when you put something like that out there, people are going to take that as backtracking. I'm sorry if I spread something, false about that, if that wasn't what you meant, if it was just, again, a hypothetical, but it felt a bit like backtracking. Now, I will admit, very quickly after this, I think within a few hours, you were right back to saying, no, Steve, definitely, but this was what was considered backtracking. Again, I'm sorry if I misinterpreted that, but that was where I'm getting that from. So, again, these are opinion pieces. If you leave open room for interpretation, which you often do with the way you leak, then I'm going to throw my opinion in there. If people take that as fact, I'm sorry, but, I always put the quote up and stuff like that, so people should really only be taking the quote as what your word is and not mine, and if they misinterpret it, well, then there's that. So now that's the only one I can address directly because it's the only one I know for sure that you meant. If there's something else, feel free to tell me what it is and I will address why I said it or what it was. Most likely it was my opinion about something and maybe that was wrong. I will say on misinformation, I'll put it this way. When you make like a Reddit thread, and it's a big question and answer thread where you have people fishing for characters and kind of teasing that you know a little bit more but not saying exactly who it is until someone mentions the character. I've been on a bunch of forums, Smashboards, other places, and people often now are saying like, what did Hitagi say about this character? Were they sure they hadn't heard about them? Were they sure this character was in, or did they just say they heard it, or what? I'm not sure. Obviously, I think the only thing you're saying for sure is Steve 100%, but I've seen a lot of people get confused, and I don't think it's necessarily YouTubers or those people on those forums that are, you know, trying to interpret or decipher exactly what characters you're leaking. I think the problem is the way you leaked it. If you do a giant Q&A thread and again have people fish for characters and give varying degrees of certainty or uncertainty about, you know, what you say back about a character, that's going to cause problems. Now, I completely understand not being 100% sure of characters and not wanting to just say who you've heard or who you haven't heard. I get that. I'm very sympathetic to that. I understand that leaking isn't a perfect science here. But if you're okay with doing a big Q&A and once somebody finally says like Heihachi and you say something that alludes to the fact that you've heard that name but you're not sure of it, why not instead just do one clear, concise post that says, I'm 100% on Steve, here's the other names I've heard that I'm comfortable saying, maybe I've heard some more names that I'm not comfortable saying yet, and just have it nice and clean so everybody can understand it. If you're making people decipher it, if you're making YouTubers like me have to give my opinion about who I think Hitagi's leaking, then I can't really see, you can't really get mad if that gets misinterpreted or isn't clear, if you're not leaking it clearly. So I know the leak Smash community is really rough, and I don't want that to burden you too hard. I don't want people to come down on you too hard. I'm very appreciative and grateful for someone, you know, who gives out some information. I'm all about trying to figure out who's in Smash, figure out as much information as possible. I love that. I find it super fun. I enjoy it, but I understand the leak community is rough, and you know, that can really wear on people. But I do think that if you are unhappy that people are not clear with what you're leaking or are taking your word too far one way or the other, as being too certain or uncertain or what they said about this, just maybe leak more clearly. Again, now we have this gigantic Reddit thread to go through and again, decipher who it is. And I you know, when you're saying YouTubers or people on forums or whoever it is are misinterpreting what you said, it's gonna happen when you do it that way. Now, I may give my opinion further on, again, who I believe Hitagi has pointed towards in that giant Reddit thread, but I'm not going to do that this time around. That'll probably be some other video down the road. For now, I'm going to let the Hitagi stuff sit, especially because Catalina went from being probably in Smash to probably not in Smash at all. So I'm just going to let that one sit. But there were some interesting stuff in there. There was something about like a Nintendo Sword user that Hitagi was specifically excited about. I have my own theory that that could potentially be someone really cool like Masked Man, if possibly Mother 3 was getting announced as a translation. Again, these characters are being picked by Nintendo, so if Nintendo is choosing characters, they may be choosing them to promote things. And again, if Mother 3 was actually happening, that would be cool. Now that is, again, completely my opinion. Hitagi just said Nintendo Sword user, and now, you know, who knows if that's true or what. I don't want to get too much into it, especially if Hitagi is a little angry that people misinterpret what they say, but I may give that, again, as a opinion piece sometime in the future. So moving away from all that for now, someone sent me this really interesting Reddit post that happened like 2 months ago, and it had Piranha Plant in it. So this looks to be a real leak that kind of got overlooked, so I'm going to read it. So this person over on Reddit, NOA Testy, said this about 2 months ago. They said, I worked on it for a while, and no effing joke, the only one in the game as of a couple weeks ago is a Piranha Plant. I have no idea why. It doesn't even have the fireball they're known for. Such a strange choice. People are going to be pissed when they announce that. It's pretty playable though, just some minor graphical bugs last I checked. I assume they'll do more DLC in the future, but that's the only one in the build we got. You have to use the debug menu to use him. Also, Incineroar is on the base roster. He does a bunch of wrestling moves. It's kind of weird. Also, his purple skin definitely looks like Big the Cat's colors. Probably a coincidence, but I always found it funny. His side special is especially strange. You literally summon ropes and bounce the opponent against them. Seriously, I know that sounds stupid, but you'll see. That's legitimately his side special. Is there a Pokemon move to justify that? I can't imagine there is. So yeah, that's all totally true information. So this was a real leak that, again, kind of went under the radar, and now there's not really anything new we can learn from it, but it's interesting. If this person pops up again on Reddit and says something, definitely worth looking at. So once again, thank you guys for all the subscribes, all the likes. It really helps out the channel. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do so, or like the video, or leave a comment, whatever you want. Until next time, have a good one.